The comments and opinions of Talk of the Heartland with Mckoy are not necessarily the opinions of Walnut Media USA, management, any particular denomination or religion, the mailman, the church lady, or anyone else of sound mind and body. Now, here's the Talk of the Heartland with Mckoy on KCRO, the Heartland's Christian voice.
Good afternoon. It's a Friday here on Talk of the Heartland on AM 660, FM 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world. At KCRO, welcome to Friday. Did you get your bathing suit back out? Did you fill the pool? This weekend we're going to hit lower 70s. That might be a little cold to go swimming, but it's going to feel like that way. And I've got a gentleman here as my guest today, and his name, and I'm going to pronounce it right. If I don't, you got to tell me. Kalsevich.
Right on the money.
All right, Matt Kalsevich, and if you don't know, he is your director of Omaha Park and Rec. And even though we met, we didn't really know each other, but you were in Des Moines from, what'd you say, 14 to 20?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was there for a few years myself. So very glad to have you here, and thank you very much for coming. And going to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about his testimony and his walk with Jesus, as well as his family. But I also want to talk a lot about Park and Rec, because when I listed all the things that you're in charge of, I don't know how anybody that lives in Omaha could not somehow be one of those. I'd be the dog park guy.
Very good.
That's where
Good to know.
Yeah, right. So anyway, we're going to talk about that today, and I look forward to it. And tell me a little bit about, and I've got your bio here, so it's really for my audience, but you've got a great history and background, education, and I especially want to hear about Japan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. Go ahead.
Well, first off, thank you for having me. Great to be here.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. Love the opportunity to talk about Park and Rec and all the things you mentioned. But yeah, I'll call it a professional odyssey. And ever since I left Orange County, California, Southern California, where I grew up, and most of my family all still live there, so it's fun to go back and visit. I was the one who left and started that adventure. But after graduating from college and getting my degree in Parks and Rec management, that was my first professional job.
Okay, I got to stop you.
Yeah.
What made you want to do this for a living? Because you're passionate about it.
I am.
You're not climbing any ladders or anything.
Well, I'll go back a little farther then, because I guess that's a funny twist and turn, and they happen along the way. And we were talking before the show about God's plan for our life and how that kind of just happens. There's not a lot of God talking to us about it. We just go.
Yeah.
And that was the case for me. Well, actually, I went to Northern Arizona University, where I met my wife. And we've been married for 20 years now. We have two boys, 9. He's younger's in 4th grade. My older is 16. Started driving this year. That was big. And he's a sophomore. So we're in this really great place in our life, period in our life. But we were at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, and I was a theater major. I was a longtime performer director.
What?
Yeah. And so I spent a lot of time on stage, a lot of time directing, and that was an incredible opportunity.
Awesome.
Enjoyed that so much. And figured out right at the end that I really wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do with my life in the world of theater. So I made a quick pivot to my other love, and I was a long-time athlete in high school, and I was a sports official growing up.
I was going to
so
say,
I got into...
you got some guns on you over there.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
No, appreciate it. And got into Park and Rec. Had a mentor at the time, a good friend who really helped direct me into that. And I said, well, how do I do what you do? And he took me under his wing and taught me these things that I still use to this day.
Isn't
So pretty
great?
Incredible. And God puts people in your life at certain times that are there for a purpose and a reason. But went into Park and Rec and got into Arizona State University, where I was majoring in recreation management. At the same time, I was the graduate assistant for intramurals and sport clubs on campus. So it just catapulted me into this incredible career and life in Parks and Rec, which, yes, I just love and love to be a part of every day. And it's one of those things, if you find something you love, you don't work a day in your life. It's that old
That's
adage.
Right. That's right.
And God has me in a place where I really feel like I can make an impact, and this is an incredible opportunity. So first professional job, fast forward, graduated from Arizona State University, call my wife, say, hey, I've got this great job opportunity. And she says, well, where's it at? I said, it's in Yokosuka, Japan. Short story about that. My wife and I both traveled in our younger years, and she had a chance to do a mission trip 2 months in Africa, in Kenya, teaching in the bush. And so she said, let's check it out. And within 6 weeks, I had accepted the job, graduated, and we were on a flight to Japan, never having been there. But again, God does things in his perfect timing. And it was just this amazing opportunity for us to go experience life, experience the world, contribute there.
Did you speak Japanese before you went there?
No, and I still don't. And here's the funny story about that. So Yokosuka Naval Base is the largest American military installation overseas, 30,000 sailors and Marines.
Wow.
So it's a little slice of America. It really is. And it was people from all 50 states and just an incredible collection of people that I still keep in touch with, a lot of them, especially those who worked for me at the time. People in Japan, the locals, the natives there, they wanted to practice their English on us so bad we never had the need or real opportunity to speak Japanese. So I knew enough to get around. I knew enough to order the food I liked. But it was really just this chance to give back. Even when we lived off base, we lived out in the community, and it was that just interesting crossover that we obviously cherished and took advantage of.
My guest today here on this Friday in Talk of the Heartland is Matt Kalsevich, and he came over to Omaha about 2 years ago, and he runs a very large organization, 250 parks.
Yes.
I got this from your press release, so if I'm wrong, I apologize. 8 public golf courses.
Yes.
18 swimming pools.
Correct.
11 splash grounds. Is that like for the little kids?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Spray ground, splash pads. Some people refer to them in different ways. It's a surface level water feature that, yes, geared toward the younger kids, safer than some of your standing water things for that age group.
Now, those 18 swimming pools, then those are like little mini water parks, most of them.
Well, we've got everything. We've got everything from really just a classic swimming pool all the way up to our facility at Lake Zorinsky that, yes, has slides and a dump bucket and, all these other features that people are really attracted to and we think serve people really well.
I love that lake. I live out in Millard, way northwest. Mm-hmm. And if I take 168th home, I get to drive over that bridge, and that's beautiful. Yeah. But now they're making it 4 lanes.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah,
no
kidding.
The intensity of things down there, not just the residential, but the use. That's probably one of our most highly used facilities in the city, and the amount of people that go through there every day is pretty amazing.
Now, you don't have anything to do with the lake, right? That's the Go ahead.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So we've got several situations, and Lake Zorinsky is one of them, but Standing Bear is another, Flanagan, Youngman, as well as Levi Carter. All places where we really are a partner, and we provide the care and maintenance and programming at those facilities through City Park and Rec, but it's a partnership with Army Corps of Engineers, the state, the NRD. So all of us are working together in different ways to maintain those spaces, but we are the day-to-day care of the facility.
Boy.
Yeah.
You really cover the ground.
It's a special opportunity. We're privileged. I personally am honored to have that responsibility and be part of providing that opportunity to residents.
You can tell how passionate you are. And as we talked earlier, you and I have a similarity, and that's it. We get to make living off of doing the most funnest. That's not the right word. I'll hear that when I get home with my English teacher wife.
Sure.
The most fun job in the world. And
Absolutely.
That's what you have, too.
Absolutely.
All right. So you also have 13 community centers, 4 dog parks. Now, we need to talk about that. We need more dog parks.
Yeah.
But those have only been around, 20 years?
Yeah, they're a relatively new feature.
Yeah.
Maybe those and the spray grounds, the splash pads, are some of the newer amenities in the community. And you're right; those evolved in maybe some other places and found their way here. Rightfully so. And so we're always looking for the next new great opportunity. I mean, a couple of the other things that, to mention are the well over 120 miles of trail. paved trail that we have.
Yeah.
And that's part of the bigger network here in the metro area. But Omaha proper, that's responsibility we have and things we maintain ourselves. We're developing new nature trails. We've got pickleball. That's an incredible opportunity that's growing nationally, and we're trying to accommodate that here as well with both outdoor and indoor use. So just, a ton of things to offer to people, and I love to talk about it. You can tell because it's just, I think we've got something for everybody.
Well, the gentleman that used to run the United States Olympic Committee was from Des Moines.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked to me one day and said, this pickleball thing's really, really getting big. And I'm like, pickleball? What is that? But they're actually talking about maybe, what would it be? Like 8 years from now, trying to get pickleball in the Olympics.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
That could be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And we do tournaments now that are several hundred people.
Really?
I mean, we've gotten that big. We added a new 4-court facility or dedicated pickleball facility at Roanoke Park. We already have 2 other spaces, Prairie Lane and Meadow Lane, where we have multiple courts together, and we're looking at other places to add them, in addition to our community centers that have permanent lines, many of them now striped on the gym floor itself. So any way we can really try and accommodate those people and that user group. And again, it's such a cool activity. If people haven't seen it, you should check it out. We're trying to do that.
I don't know if you're watching this on our webcast, but if you're watching it live or if you get a chance to watch it later, this man just beams. I mean, he really loves what he does.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes.
For
All
sure.
right, when we come back, I want to switch to some Jesus talk because I know that you've got a good testimony and your family's always been involved in faith and values. So we'll talk about that a little bit.
Sounds good.
And then, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw some pastor's questions at you.
Sure.
I don't know if you'll like that or not.
Whatever works.
I got some good ones.
I like it.
All right. Matt is his first name. Kalsevich is his last, and he is your new, in the last couple of years, Park and Rec Director for Omaha and the surrounding areas, and we'll learn more about him as you and I spend a Friday afternoon together here on The Voice, the Christian Voice of the Heartland, on AM 660 and FM 106.7, and all around the world at kcro.com.
Hi, I'm EB, and welcome to Heartbeat. There was a young man who, without knowing how to drive, without permission or a license, decided to take his dad's car for a spin. It didn't end well. He ended up crashing into his neighbor's shed, causing extensive damage. The neighbor thought about calling the police or arranging payment with the boy's parents. However, at the mention of either of these, he saw the terror in the boy's eyes and decided to pay the expenses himself. This is exactly what Jesus Christ did for all mankind. Justice indicated eternal death, but God had mercy and came to live as one of us and ultimately die in our place. For his love, favor, and grace, he died on the cross, paying for all our sins. Heartbeat is brought to you by the Salvation Army.
Do you want to grow your leadership skills? Are you interested in personal growth? Hi, I'm Jamie Hansen with Alloy Solutions. I'm inviting you to join us for our Live to Lead 2022, Thursday, December 8th at A View West Shores. John Maxwell will be keynoting along with a curated video presentation from other world-class speakers. Go to alloystrong.com/live2lead. That's alloystrong.com/live2lead. Give yourself the gift of leadership, inspiration, and personal growth this year.
Do you need a little good news in your life? Tune in to Spotlight Good News Omaha on KCRO 3 times daily, weekdays at 5:30 a.m., 9:45 a.m., and 10:15 p.m. with your host, Tim Janisewski, on KCRO, the Heartland's Christian voice.
100 years KCRO.
Live from the Divine Truth Studios, I'm Mckoy, and this is Talk of the Heartland on KCRO. Coming up at 5 o'clock today, one of my favorite shows on this radio station, the incredible Ron Brown, Coach Ron Brown from the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and Michael Bliss have a radio show, and it's called Alive and Active. And no, they're not going to talk about Nebraska football, and that's one of the things I guess I appreciate about this this program that they have, because these guys talk about Jesus in a way that men should talk about Jesus. No offense to you ladies, not at all. We've got Debbie Blank. We've got as many females on this radio station as we do males. To be honest with you, the females have better shows. No, they do. Their hearts are, a lot better than ours. But anyway, listen to the show today. It's 5 o'clock, and it's called Alive and Active with Coach Ron Brown and Michael Bliss here on KCRO. All right, my guest today is the new director of Omaha Park and Rec. Now, I keep saying new. Yeah, do you still feel new? Because you've been here, 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years this month.
Okay.
It's gone by fast.
Yeah, but do you still feel like
I'm okay still being new? That's got,
okay.
I'll work. I can work with that.
All right. Well, and you're newly married 20 years ago.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, if we're going to put new, we got to put new everywhere.
Right,
You have 2 new kids.
Yep, exactly.
And your wife is an art
new.
Yeah, your wife's an art teacher.
She is. Yeah.
Now, tell if it's okay.
Yeah.
Is she just passionate about art, or is she an artist?
She is both.
Okay.
The way that she comes home and shares how she works and impacts and influences the kids that she has the responsibility for now, which is almost 600 at the school that she's at. Actually, she's at 2 schools, so it's significantly more than that. But just thinking about who she sees on a week-to-week basis. And then her art is amazing. I'm her biggest fan.
What is she?
She paints, she sculpts.
Wow.
She does these craft projects that are just off the charts amazing. And
Do you
I
have
love
one of
having
those?
That in our home.
Do you have one of those pottery wheels in your house?
A little one that our younger son dabbles with
okay.
sometimes. So we're maybe not that complex, but we did in our new house here create what we have, affectionately tagged our ladies' lounge. And it's her art space. It's a reading space.
Kind of the opposite of
that.
the man cave.
Yes, she deserves that. She's earned that, and I'm happy for her. And it's a place where she can really get away and be herself and express herself. So
later on, Matt, who's the new director of Park and Rec, last name Kalsevich, we're going to talk a little bit about working with some of the other communities here in the Omaha area. But I also want to talk about his walk with Jesus. And you gave me the date of October 14th of 1995.
Yes.
Give me a little bit about what you were like before.
Sure.
And then what happened and what you're like now.
Well, it was high school time for me. Again, God is so good and his timing is perfect. Had me connected with some people that brought me to a youth group, and I hadn't really been involved before. They answered God's call to say, who are you going to invite? Bring your friends. And got connected with a youth pastor that really just I clicked with, talked my language. Even though I wasn't a Christian at the time, had relatability on what I was dealing with in my life.
Were you in church with mom and dad growing up?
Nope.
Okay.
All
right.
It wasn't part of what I worked, was connected to. My dad was a former Catholic and had some, challenging religious situations.
That's
and so,
all right.
Knew about some of those things. But his father, who I was very close to, and my older son is actually named after, he was Catholic, but we had a connection and we had relatability on a spiritual level that I think I carried forward past my grandfather, his dad's death when I was 12 years old. So fast forward a few years later, and I had some of that still on my heart. I ended up, with a high school girlfriend at the time who, again, was really pushing forward with her Christian walk, was a lifelong Christian, if you could say that, grew up in the home and embraced God and Jesus at a very early age. Well, we went to an event, I remember it was called This Side Up. It was a youth rally. It was a youth event. And I still have the rock of my salvation that I got from that day.
Oh, neat.
It's in our house, and I have possession of it. And it was just that moment where the call to come up to the stage and really embrace that life and accept Jesus, and it just felt so natural. And so moving forward, I went to a church and Pastor Doug Green. I still see him on Facebook. We were talking about the positives and the relevance of Facebook these days at North Hills Church in Brea, California, where I grew up. really embraced
La Brea?
me. Brea.
Oh, Brea,
So not
okay.
Brea, North Orange County, smallest city in Orange County, about 40,000 people. That's the smallest city in Orange County. But a one high school town, wonderful community, and I cherish having grown up there so much. But he brought me in, made me part of their youth group, had me leading events. I see his daughters who are getting married now. I remember leading the Easter event, the egg hunt for the church as just a new Christian, but he challenged me with all these things. Again, God's perfect timing as a young male Christian. To do these things, to lead people and to serve and to show me that and to have that be on my heart. And I just couldn't be more thankful for the way that unfolded in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, your wife, how was she raised in the church or outside the church, or what denomination? And most importantly, how did you guys figure it out, or were you the same?
Sure. She had a different background, grew up in the church, but Baptist background and something much more structured than I had ever experienced.
Oh, yeah.
And
Those Baptists know how to do it.
And a broad range of experiences in her family that obviously put her in a place where she felt compelled. And I mentioned it earlier. She went on a 2-month mission trip to Africa, and it was teaching based, but it was led by a Christian organization, and she was very entrenched in some different things on campus at Northern Arizona. But we finally made a connection our senior year where she was looking for another opportunity to really express herself and be in maybe a different leadership type position from a Christian standpoint, young Christian standpoint. And so we were at Lutheran Campus Ministry, and Pastor Jeff Johnson, who ended up marrying us and performing our ceremony, and somebody we've kept in touch with over the years. And again, it was just I think about God's perfect timing, and when I concerned about life, I just think about those different benchmarks we hit along the way and said, he had it figured out. He had it figured out. Why am I so worried? He's got it figured out, and I know that moving forward. So it was just the convergence of us being in the right place, me maybe coming up, her maybe coming across, and finding a balance and a connection there that's really been a great fit for our life.
Well, obviously, 20 years,
Yeah.
2 boys.
Yeah.
My guest today is the director of the Omaha Park and Rec, Matt Kalsevich. And he's in charge of 250 parks, 8 golf courses, 18 swimming pools, 11 splash grounds, 13 community centers, 4 dog parks, and you work real closely with other park and recs. And you also said the lake.
Yeah.
And Carter, too, you said both of those?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And tell me, if there's a park in Millard, is that a part of your responsibility?
Yeah, everything that's Omaha proper.
Okay.
The Elkhorn area, the Millard area. I know things that have been folded into, what is called Omaha over the years, and not being from here. That's probably my one deficiency, and I rely on some of my staff who've been here for 20, 25, 30 years to really give me that historical breakdown. All of that is pretty much under our jurisdiction. Now, we do have some SIDs. And yep. So
no, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. So it's the
you got to talk to me like I'm 8 years old.
There you
okay.
Go. So even some of the city functions get me sometimes, but those are the independent development communities that have been established around the city, and some of those get incorporated into city function. Well, they have sometimes their own parks, their own features, and we're involved in the planning process, though, that if and when someday those become part of the city, we know what we need to prepare for in terms of providing continued maintenance and support for the residents who become accustomed to those being amenities and facilities that they have right in their neighborhood, which is awesome.
Yeah. Before you leave, I will give you my, it'll be the only 6-page business card you'll ever get.
Okay.
And it's really my track.
Yeah.
Because I meet and work with so many people that are in the secular world, and a lot of times tracks are really intimidating. And so mine is full of little sayings. And my favorite is number 3. And that reminds me of what you were talking about with you and your bride. And coincidence is God's way of revealing himself.
Yeah.
And if we go back and we look in our lives, even if we draw like a timeline, and you even look long before you knew Jesus, you'll see how he was working.
Absolutely.
In your life. And it's so much fun to do that.
Well, and to your point, the forks in the road for me, and we were talking, I know, earlier about my path into Parks and Rec. I was playing football at Northern Arizona University and broke my leg.
Oh, no.
And if I wouldn't have broken my leg, I wouldn't have ended up at home for that summer and making a connection through my brother who was working for our city of Brea, Parks and Rec at the time. And then unfortunately the next year, and what a mess I was, I got pneumonia, had to leave early. Well, I ended up working for my younger brother with Brea Parks and Rec, and little did I know, and all these years later, I can see God working on me and how he wanted my life to go. If I wouldn't have had that experience and made that connection, I wouldn't have maybe necessarily thought about that as something for my life and something to do as a career. And obviously it was all part of how he had it mapped out a long time ago.
What's your brother's name?
Daniel.
Daniel. Is Daniel still in Park and Rec?
No, Daniel's actually in IT. So we couldn't be on a more opposite ends of the spectrum, but a great athlete in high school, a lot of fun. We were just a year apart, so my dad coached us. Funny that I mentioned, we didn't necessarily go to church, but my parents both came from a religious background. Daniel and Matthew, both Bible names, and
there
specifically why my parents picked those for us.
I was going to tell you that you know who you're named after, but you've already answered that.
So, but anyway, so funny we had that little convergence where I worked for my little brother for a summer, and that was a lot of fun. But again, his athletic background, a perfect fit for him. But he ended up going into IT, great for his personality, serving in a way now with his family he's been incredibly successful.
But still
two brothers so far on the opposite end of the work spectrum there. That's pretty great.
Well, kind of.
Well, yeah.
Is he still in California?
Yeah, Orange County. Yeah.
Okay.
Loves it there. Perfect fit for him and his family. When we go out and visit, just fun to, reconnect with them and like we never left.
All right. My guest today, this is fun. He's the new director. I call him new. He's been here 2 years, but he's the director of the Omaha Park and Rec. Unbelievable what he's in charge of. His name is Matt Kalsevich, but we've also talking a little bit about Jesus. So I'm going to give you one of my tough questions. Okay. There was one highlighted. And you don't answer it now. We'll go to a commercial break, and that'll give you time.
Very good.
And I won't talk to you during the break so you can look it up.
Okay.
All right. What happens from the moment you die until the moment you see Jesus? What happens from the moment the flat line comes out and everybody's crying, and then all of a sudden you're standing before your Lord and Savior? My guest is Matt Kalsevich. He is the director of Omaha Park and Rec, and I thank you for taking your time to listen to us today on the Talk of the Heartland. And we are the Heartland's Christian voice, AM 660, FM 106.7 in Lincoln, and all around the world at kcro.com.
This is Steve Arterburn from New Life Live. Do you have any character-building people in your life? That's what I call the people that make your life difficult. We hate the fact that they're even in our lives, but without them, we'd never come close to what God wants for us. Tune in at 1 o'clock Monday through Friday as we answer questions on how to deal with some of the character-building people in your life.
Hey, it's Ricardo Montgomery inviting you to keep it locked on KCRO to listen to my show, Straight Talk with Ricardo Montgomery, Fridays at 11 p.m. And oh yeah, check out the podcast on kcro.com. Blessings. Peace.
The ministries you listen to every day here on KCRO all have one thing in common. They're all working to bring souls to Christ. Many of the ministries that do such a fine job of sharing the word of the Lord never know the impact they have on their listeners' lives. So today, take a minute and let your favorite program know they are making a difference. If you need contact information for a specific program, you can call us here and we'd be glad to help. Thanks for listening, and God bless.
Hey, this is Mac from Talk of the Heartland, and I want to tell you thanks for listening. I love this job, and I couldn't do it without you. And there's many ways to listen to us. You have Facebook. You have KCRO.com. Plus, you've got our, if I may say, world-famous app on your phone that you can hear us anytime, fully digital. And don't forget smart speakers like Alexa or Google. We just want you to listen. And no matter where you are when you're listening, at home, at work, or in the car, remember to write it down. We are AM 660 and 106.7 KCRO. And we want to hear what you think about what we do. So call me at 1-402-819-2666 or email me, Mac, like macaroni, Mac at kcro.com.
Sundays at 5 p.m. on KCRO. Tune in to Breaking Bread with Cheryl Fisher of JC Overcomers Ministries.
We go to the grocery store and we buy regular bread. And so he shows this picture within the scriptures about how he compares his spiritual food to our physical food.
Breaking Bread with Cheryl Fisher. Sundays at 5 p.m. on KCRO, 660 a.m. in Omaha and 106.7 FM in Lincoln. And online at kcro.com.
Now your forecast for KCRO for Omaha, Council Bluffs, and Lincoln. A wind advisory begins at 4 p.m. this afternoon and continues until midnight tonight. Mainly clear skies tonight with a low of 14. Northwesterly winds 20 to 25 miles per hour. Highs around 34 tomorrow. Bright sunshine expected. Partly cloudy skies tomorrow night. Lows dip down to about 22. I'm weatherology meteorologist Paul Trombley on KCRO. Right now 44.
The Heartland's Christian voice, KCRO.
Jesus had disappeared after feeding the 5,000, which was probably more like 20. And he didn't get in the boat with the apostles as they crossed. And all of a sudden, Peter saw him walking on water. And he said, "Lord, what are you doing? Can I walk on water?" And Jesus said, "With the faith, even of a mustard seed, you can do anything with my Father's help." And that's where this song came from the miniseries Chosen. It's Walk on the Water here on AM 660 and FM 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world at kcro.com. And if you don't know the rest of that story, Peter put one foot out and walked on water, took 2 steps, lost his focus that it was his Father. It was Jesus helping him do that, thought he was doing it himself, and he began to sink. Now, how does that relate to something in your life? You're so excited about doing something, and you bring Jesus along, not for the ride, but to be the pilot, not the co-pilot. And then all of a sudden, this goes well, and that goes well, and before you know it, Jesus is in the back seat because you're taking all the credit for what he's doing for you. I should know. That was me for many years. So thank you for following Jesus, the guy we talk about all the time here on AM 660, FM 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world at kcro.com. My guest today is Matt Kalsevich, and he is the director of the Omaha Park and Rec. Unbelievable amount of stuff that he's in charge of, and we're going to talk about some of that in a minute. But first of all, he agreed to answer some of my pastor's questions, and I gave him one of the tough ones up front. But you smiled at me, so I knew you probably had the answer before I ever turned off the mic. But it says, what happens from the moment you die until you see Jesus?
So the interesting part about this question, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier when I was mentioning Northern Arizona. So I went to a Lutheran campus ministry, and probably 5 of my 10 closest friends there all became Lutheran pastors. Oh. And they're friends of mine on Facebook. So they're going to see this, and they're probably going to get on me if I'm off at all on any of this. But for that in particular, the debates are out there about all those, about we go to sleep. And the great rapture and the great return is imminent. And I believe, and, my wife and I have our theological debates, her growing up in the church and me still being years new about my job here. If I'm new in my job, I'm definitely still a new Christian.
I know that
learning
feeling
all the time in both places. But I have the 100% confidence that I'm going to open my eyes on the backside of that journey, and Jesus is going to be there. And gosh, the question list that I have is unbelievably long right now. Yeah. And it's going to be glorious and spectacular, and I'm excited that my family is all in that same position with me. My boys have had their experience with Christ, and I couldn't be happier, and that's the greatest joy of my life every day.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you the next question to this because you just brought it up, and I want to tell you something else. So when you get there, who's the first person you want to talk to? And Grandma and Jesus don't count.
Yeah.
And what will you ask them?
Oh, wow. Well, you took grandma out of the list.
I'm sorry, because everybody says grandma or Jesus.
And the hard part about it is, I spoke about it already. My grandfather was probably, other than my parents, my dad's father was the closest.
Yeah.
And there were so many things, and it's the moments again that you appreciate and you learn and you grow from. It's the pain sometimes more than the joy. There were so many things I still had to ask him and still had to talk to him about and still wanted to know.
Oh.
And that's why, and my mom actually laughed about it at the time and laughed about it when it happened. It was a good laugh that on the day my grandfather died, I said, and I was 12 years old, I said, I'm going to name my first son, after my grandfather. And then when it happened and he was born and I called and I told her that was his name.
Yeah.
She kind of went, wow, I can't believe that really happened that way. But yeah, there's so much I still wanted to figure out about, and it's funny, God did that for a reason. I wasn't meant to figure those things out. Those were supposed to put my brain in a place where He wanted to have me grow as a person and as a Christian. But to figure out all those things directly when I get there, that would be incredible.
Well, as a pastor, many times the answer I give to someone with a question is, I don't know. Nobody knows. It's one of those things that Jesus will reveal to us, either in this life or the next. But we'll figure it out. But it'll probably be handed to us on a card, so we won't have to know the answer. He'll just tell us.
Yes, agree.
All right. So you are the director of the Omaha Park and Rec, and 250 parks, 8 public golf courses, 18 swimming pools, 4 dog runs, 13 community centers. Holy Toledo. How do you have one of those maps in your office that has pins?
I do.
I figured you did on everything that.
Well, again, things I've already mentioned, but relevant to keep talking about. Not being from Omaha, it was my goal in the first year to go to all 256 parks and
you're like a politician that goes to all the counties.
I made it to every one.
Okay.
And it was an incredible journey because we have an amazing park system, and I just am so thrilled to be part of the way that we're serving the community, the way that we're part of people's quality of life here in Omaha. And I have an incredible team. That's the other thing that I'm just so grateful, so thankful for, people who are committed, if not more committed, because of the way that they've invested in the community personally, maybe growing up here than even me, to trying to make sure that this is the greatest opportunity for people and residents that it can be every day.
Well, and you and Jesus have something in common, because he also thinks he's got an incredible team. And luckily, you and I are a part of it, and most of the people listening, too. All right. Hey, I want to let you know, coming up at 5 o'clock, it's Live and Active with Nebraska football coach Ron Brown and Michael Bliss. And no, they're not going to talk about football. And then at 5:30, my good friend Jeff Kaiser, who is the pastor at Harvest Church. And that'll wrap us up from 5 to 6. And then, of course, at 6, it's Adventures in Odyssey. As always, if you've got comments or criticisms, and I love your criticism, I mean, I really do. I want to know how to do this better. You can email me. It's easy, Mac, M-A-C, like macaroni, at kcro.com. So how can we as a community support what you do?
Well, first and foremost, we just want people to come out and enjoy and experience what we have. If you haven't had a chance to get out to your local park, to one of the facilities you mentioned, I highly recommend it. I think you're going to have an experience that is just going to really maybe go as far as changing your existence as somebody who lives in the city. And if you are experiencing those things around you because of the quantity and volume that we have available, I recommend people get out and experience something new. And it's really not that far away from you now,
right,
with the volume of what you keep mentioning. I appreciate that, to go have a different experience, but one that can be just as good, if not better. So we have a way to provide feedback. We have a way to get in touch with more information. I recommend people just on a semi-regular basis go to parks.cityofomaha.org and just see the full menu of what's available to people. And then the way to get in touch with us and the way to keep up with the most relevant current information, whether it be through Facebook, Twitter, our newsletter, all of these ways that we're just trying to reach people about these opportunities that, again, most often are free and are really ways that I think information is shown over time, enhance the way that people can experience their daily life here.
Give me the website again.
It's parks.cityofomaha.org.
That's it?
Everything we do. All right there.
That's easy.
It's pretty convenient.
I have to ask you this question. I never watched the show Park and Rec, and I really never did.
Sure.
But was it a good mirror of what goes on in your organization?
Art imitating life does exist. For
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
And that is why I think shows like that, and that one in particular, obviously very relevant and special in relation to what I do, definitely has some crossover. Characters, storylines, plots, as crazy as some of them might be, they're out there in the history of Parks and Rec, and some of that in Omaha too. So that is a funny thing.
All right. My guest today is Matt Kalsevich. He is the director of Parks and Rec here in the greater Omaha area. He's also a young man who found Jesus, or Jesus found him, way back on the 14th day of October in 1995. You had just turned 17.
Yep.
And so he's allowing me to ask some of the pastor's questions, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to ask you one, and then we'll not talk about it. And when you come back, you can answer it.
Got it.
All right. So here it is. Are you ready?
Yep.
How do you underestimate God? How does Matt underestimate God? We'll be back. We'll talk about that and hear that and a little bit more about your Park and Rec department. It's yours. I mean, if you're in the sound of my voice in the greater Omaha area, this is your stuff. So use it and go to park.org and you can find out where it is, how to use it, how to enjoy it. All right, we're coming back. I'm Mac McCoy. We are the talk of the Heartland here on AM 660 and FM 106.7 and all around the world at kcro.com.
Amid the highest levels of inflation seen in decades, thousands of Omaha families are struggling to escape poverty. But this holiday season, you can help them find a way forward by giving to the Salvation Army. Here in the Metro, we serve families with the support they need to get back on their feet by providing food, shelter, utility assistance, and much more. Join our effort to love beyond Christmas. Give to the Salvation Army now at omaharedkettle.org. That's omaharedkettle.org.
Truth University.
I believe many of us long to experience a greater reality of God's presence and God's power. I believe many of us want to know Christ in a greater way. I believe our hearts all need to be revived, but so few voices are going to bring us to that place where we can see revival again in our land. Amen.
Truth University with Pastor Aaron Trimble of West Point Family Worship Center. Saturdays at 4 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 8:30 on KCRO.
Take part in the BSA Big Give Luncheon 2023, Steering the Future, Monday, December 12th from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the CHI Center. You will hear from community leaders, scouts, and keynote speaker Captain Richard Phillips. Register now at bsabiggive.org.
If emotions are a product of your thought life, who controls your thought life determines how you feel.
Dr. Tony Evans says even though we can't ignore bad feelings, we don't have to surrender to them.
If God is controlling your thinking, then you will feel like God wants you to feel because emotions piggyback off of thoughts.
Overcoming emotional strongholds. This week on The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans.
Tony Evans, weekday evenings at 7:30 on KCRO, the Heartland's Christian voice.
KCRO.
Dear God, enlighten what's dark in me, strengthen what's weak in me, mend what's broken in me, bind what's bruised in me, heal what's sick in me, and lastly, Lord, revive whatever peace and love has died in me so I can walk closer with you. It's Talk of the Heartland here on AM 660 and FM 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world at kcro.com. I want to just remind you, our studios are brought to you by Divine Truth. And if you've never been there, I invite you to check it out, maybe even tomorrow. It's at 84th and Harrison, family-owned, third generation, and you will love this store. Because here's what they do so well. We're in Christmas, right? And we give gifts, right? Well, let's keep Christ in Christmas and give to our friends, our family, our neighbors, and our loved ones something that reminds them to keep Christ in Christmas. Everything from T-shirts, keychains, coffee mugs, cool stuff on the walls, and, of course, every book, Bible, and everything that you could ever wonder. It's a great store. Tell Rodney and Jen that Max said hi. It's Divine Truth, and it's at 84th and Harrison here in Omaha. All right, my guest today is Matt Kalsevich, and he is the director of Park and Rec. Very excited young man. I love this guy's passion. But he is letting me ask some questions. And so the last question I asked him, which he'll nicely, I hope, tell me what his answer is. How do you, Matt, underestimate God?
That happens every day. It really does. All the things that I've mentioned, you think those would be so much more prominent in my mind. I really, in my early years, you asked me this question too, I maybe didn't elaborate on as much about who I was before I was saved and who I became or how I was different after. I really had a lot of ego issues.
Okay.
I really just felt like I could do anything I wanted at any time I wanted, and it was really 100% about me making those choices.
I resemble that.
Well, as then I guess you probably know, and we can relate to each other on, those were the hardest things to change quickly, and they still, I guess, rear their ugly head, for a lack of a better idea.
Yeah.
And I think this is my call. This is my choice. And so when that really gets out of whack, and it doesn't take a long time, it doesn't take a lot, God puts me back in my place very quickly with just, something that I know I couldn't make different without God's help.
Well, and one of the things I love to talk about is struggles are the way God shows himself.
100%.
Yeah, we're struggling with something, and it's an opportunity for God to work on some of those idols, some of those things that we really try to hold on to. And Jesus says, "No, you're going to give that back."
And where he's really put things on my heart is just connecting the dots very deliberately with my boys. And when I make a mistake or when he very dramatically corrects me, I bring them into the fold and I say, "I'm going to tell you about how this happened to me. And I'm going to share this experience with you. So you have this knowledge on top of what he's doing to shape things in you very specifically and personally. And hopefully that's something that accelerates their ability to get past some of the trials and challenges that I've dealt with just because of where I picked up with Jesus very fortunately in my life."
I bet you're a good dad, aren't you?
Thank you. I enjoy working with my boys, helping my boys. I'm a longtime youth sports coach with them.
Yeah.
It's an honor and a privilege, and I'm so thankful to be their dad and have the opportunities that Jesus has given me with them every day.
Okay, so you've told me for the last 50 minutes all the things you love about your job. I'm going to get you humble for a second. Tell me what you need to improve upon.
Oh, patience.
Okay.
And it's that ego part again. I work in a municipal system where there's checks and balances and there's responsibilities different than maybe some others have. And I always want to get to the finish line faster than maybe I should. And sometimes that causes you to make mistakes.
Well, sure.
And the last thing I want to do is be irresponsible or careless with the responsibility that's been given me, especially when it's in connection to, tax. Taxpayer dollars.
Sure.
I take that responsibility very seriously, and so making sure